And this is how you can turn a few basic knots into a wearable macrame skirt. Here and welcome back to Boho Macramé. I am super excited to be sharing with you guys today's pattern on how to make a macrame skirt using some of the basic knots of macrame. So if you guys can't already tell from this pattern, it's really made with double half hitch knots, square knots, some Rya Weave knots, and then at the back we have a 3-ply braid and a little overhand knot at the end. I would say the most challenging part of the pattern is making sure that it will fit. So having the right measurements and then always trying the pattern on with every section that you make will definitely help save you time and make sure that it fits properly. This skirt pattern is a size extra small to small. It is a 26-inch waist. And all you have to do to make it bigger or smaller is to take away 2 cords or add 2 cords at a time. You want to try to add 2 on both sides just so that the pattern is even on both sides. Another thing you have to make sure is that the opening on the back, so right here where the 3-ply braid is wide enough so that you can take off the skirt easily and put it on easily as well. This is the opening to where you have to take it off and put it back on. And so you do need to leave several rows of space, as I've done here, so that you can do that. And then lastly, when you get to the very end, all you need to do is leave about 1 centimeter of space in between each of the square knots and then add another reverse lark's head plus half hitch fringe here so that you have a wide enough opening at the bottom as well. I hope this will be a good little intro to macrame clothing for you. And with all of that said, let's get right into it. Other than your hands, all you will need for this pattern is some 4mm cotton cord. Here are the suggested cord lengths for the size of the skirt that I had used, and the approximate size is listed here as well. So before we jump right into the pattern, I just wanted to quickly go over the cord that I will be using for this tutorial. This is a 4mm 3-ply cotton cord in our mocha color. I like to use 3-ply for clothing patterns just because it is sturdier and therefore it holds shape better. We carry 3-ply in 2 different sizes, 3mm and 4mm, in several different colors. If you guys are interested in checking this out, you can head on over to the Boho shop or on the US and Canadian Amazon. First things first, we're going to get some measurements. We're going to start off with our waist measurements so that we know the size approximately of the skirt we're going to make. I've measured to approximately 26 inches, and so that's the size I'm going to use. First things first, we're going to use a strand of cord at 150 centimeters long, and we're just going to tie it loosely onto the mannequin or pin it on there. If you are thinking of making a skirt that's size medium or large, I would recommend using 200 centimeter long cords instead of 150 centimeter long cords for this part of the pattern. Once we get to the longer 300 centimeter long cords, those can stay the same length. So we're going to take the cord ends to the back and we're just going to pin the center part of the strand of cord down at the front. We're now going to take all 36 strands, 1 cord at a time, and we're going to attach it onto this horizontal anchor cord using a reverse lark's head plus half hitch knot with each strand of cord. So take 1 strand of cord, fold it in half, make a reverse lark's head plus half hitch knot onto the anchor cord. Once the reverse lark's head knot has been made, we're going to take one end, and I'm going to take the right end and make a half hitch knot onto the right side, and then take the left end and make a half hitch knot onto the left side. Now repeat this pattern 35 more times so that you have a total of 36 reverse lark's head plus half hitch knots all along this anchor cord. First things first, we're going to try this pattern on ourselves just to make sure that it fits okay. And then either take away cords or add cords if necessary, but do that in groups of 2 knots, meaning 2 strands of cord. Now turning the pattern over to the back side, we're going to take our second strand of cord at 150 centimeter long, pin it right underneath the start of the reverse lark's head knot pattern at the back, and we're going to use this as another anchor cord for a row of double half hitch knots this time. So make sure that the length left over here is approximately the length left over up at the top with the bow that we had tied onto the mannequin. You can definitely shift the cords after if they become uneven once the row is done, but it's probably easier to get it close enough at the beginning. So now we're going to take one cord at a time, and we're going to make a double half hitch knot onto this horizontal anchor cord. And then we're going to do it one by one all the way around. Once this is complete, repeat once more with our last strand of 150 centimeter long cord. So once the double half hitch knots have been made, we're now going to start on the square knot pattern of this piece, which is the bulk of the skirt pattern. We're going to start at one end. I'm going to start at the left end here, and we're going to take the first 4 vertical cords on the left side and make a square knot. So ignoring those side cords in the middle there, you can make another knot to set those cords aside, but we're going to take the first 4 vertical cords and make a square knot. Then continue all the way around the skirt 4 cords at a time. Once the first row of square knots are made, we're going to turn the pattern back to the front center, and we're going to separate out the side cords. So what we want here is to see the middle 8 square knots from that top row that we had just made, and then the side and back 5 square knots on both sides we're going to separate out for now. So use a pin or tape to mark this on both sides to separate out the back cords. So here we're going to make a series of alternating square knots, starting with this top row of 8 square knots in the middle. So starting on the right side, in between the right 2 square knots, we're going to make an alternating square knot. And we're not going to make this square knot tight. We're going to leave about 1 centimeter of space in between the first row and the second row of square knots here. Then we're going to continue this all the way to the left side, and we're only making 7 square knots on this row. we're going to continue downwards in a V-shaped upside down triangle like pattern until we reach one row at the very bottom. So we keep making these alternating square knot rows with one less square knot with each row heading downwards. So again, starting in between the left two square knots, make another square knot, leaving also another centimeter of space in between the square knot rows. Continue all the way across and then all the way downwards until we are at the square knot row with just one square knot. So once the front pattern is completed for now, we're going to head to the back side and then start making the square knots there. Because we want a wider opening at the back, we're going to leave a few rows unconnected at the back so that there is a larger gap. So here you see the 5 square knots on the left side, and what we're going to do is make a row of alternating square knots. We're going to start underneath the 3rd and the 4th square knot from the right, and underneath there we're going to make an alternating square knot, and we're going to finish off with 2 more square knots to the right. For this next row of square knots, we're going to start underneath the left 2 square knots for an alternating square knot, then continue with 2 more to the right. So the right side's going to be straight downwards with the left side diagonally facing towards the right. We do want the square knot pattern here on the side and at the back to be a little bit more loose than the front. You can see here we left a little bit more space compared to the square knot pattern in the front. That's because the hips are a little bit wider, and the same thing with the back side, and therefore we want it to be a little bit looser on the sides and at the back to fit the shape of the body better. Now flip the pattern to the other side and repeat the exact same rows that we had just done on the left. This is what the pattern should look like on the right side and on the left as well. So what I did was I had brought the 2 sides together underneath with a square knot, and then I tried it on to see if the opening was large enough, and it wasn't. So what happened was I have to add more rows of square knots underneath, leaving a larger gap here. So same thing, continuing on with the diagonal pattern on the left side, we're going to start underneath the left 2 square knots and make an alternating square knot, and then make another one to the right. Then add 1 more row underneath of 2 square knots. Then add these 2 rows on the right side as well. Once it is done, we can now connect the patterns together on both sides with another alternating square knot. So bring the 4 cords in the center and make an alternating square knot. And then finish off the rest of this pattern so that it also becomes an upside down triangle or V-shaped square knot pattern. Now you can try the pattern on once more to see if it will fit properly, and this time it should. If it doesn't, you can continue adding another 2 rows underneath before sealing the pattern together. Okay, so I've tried it on and it fits, and now we're going to work on the patterns on both sides. We're just going to fill up the rest of the side here with square knots as well. But just so you guys remember, the V-shaped pattern we made at the front and the back, right underneath is where we're going to make those Rya Weave knots to make the fringe pattern. So we're just going to leave a little bit more space in between this next row of square knots here so that we remember where to add the Rya Weave knots at the end. So starting directly underneath the top square knot in the middle to the side of this pattern, we're going to make 2 alternating square knots underneath, and then we're just going to continue making these rows of alternating square knots until we reach the bottom row where the front and the back are aligned with the sides. I've made the first outline here with an upside down V on both sides, and this is the gap, the space where we're going to be filling in with the Rya Weave knots. So continue this upside down V all the way to the bottom on the right and then all the way to the bottom on the left. Now repeat this exact same upside down V pattern on the other side. Once the upside down V is complete on both sides, at the front and the back, we're going to finish off with that last square knot in the middle. Now that the middle square knot has been completed on the front and back sides, we're just going to fill up the rest of the pattern here on the sides with square knots all the way to the bottom. So now that we have made the pattern all the way to the bottom, it is still relatively short for a skirt, so we're just going to add 4 more alternating square knot rows underneath all around. Now to seal off the bottom of the skirt, take our last strand of 150 centimeter long cord, place it horizontal right underneath the last row of square knots, and then holding onto one end, we're going to take one strand of vertical cord as a working cord and attach it onto this horizontal anchor cord using a double half hitch knot. Make sure that both ends of this horizontal cord will end up at the back of the skirt. And then with that, we're just going to take all of the vertical cords and attach it onto this horizontal anchor cord with double half hitch knots. Once you get to the back of the skirt, in the center is where we should have both ends of the horizontal anchor cords, and there should be 1 centimeter of space at minimum in between each of the square knots here at the bottom row. And then if that is the case, we're going to take the 2 anchor cords and we're going to make one last double half hitch knot. For this next part, we're going to trim the fringe. We're going to leave about 8 centimeters of fringe right at the bottom and then trim off all the rest. So we're going to save our long scrap cords. Anything above 30 centimeters, we're going to use those to make the Rya Weave knots. So taking 2 scrap cords, we're going to find out where we're going to attach them, and it's that space right underneath the upside down triangle. And then between 2 loops, we're going to make a Rya Weave knot. We are going to weave the cord ends through the loops that are closer together and then bring them through the middle where there is more space. So I'm going to show you this one more time. We're going to weave it through the smaller loops on both sides, and then bring them through the middle with the larger gap. You're going to continue this diagonally upwards and then on to the right side. Now, on the side here, we're going to add one more Rya Weave knot here in the center at the top, and then we're going to start our V-shaped pattern at the back, mirroring what we had just done at the front of the skirt. And so if you do run out of cord for these Rya Weave knots, then cut strands of cord at 30 centimeters long and finish off the rest of the fringe. Once the fringe is added, we're going to trim them so that they are all the same length. Now lastly, at the bottom, you should have gaps in between all of the square knots at the last row. We're going to fill those in with some reverse lark's head plus half hitch knots. So you're going to need 30cm long cords for this part of the pattern. Either use some leftover scraps or cut some extra 30cm long cords. We're going to make a reverse lark's head first, then take the right end, make a half hitch knot, left end with another half hitch knot, and then we're going to repeat this all around the bottom of the skirt. And then last but not least, we're going to trim the fringe at the very bottom. At the top part at the back, we're going to undo the knot we have there, and with each side we're going to make a 3-ply braid, and then at the very end we're going to make an overhand knot. To make a 3-ply braid, all you have to do is alternate each cord at a time, and then once you get to the bottom, finish off with that overhand knot and repeat the same thing on the other side. And that concludes our macrame fringe skirt tutorial. I really hope you guys enjoyed it and learned a new thing or two about making macrame clothing pieces. It is a different project than what we typically make, so say a wall hanging or a plant hanger, but we use the same knots to make a different project type. But this just goes to show how versatile macrame is, and you can take the same knots that you use to make a wall hanging or a plant hanger and make it into beautiful clothing pieces. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys enjoyed about this tutorial, and then also let me know what other clothing pieces or fashion items you guys want to see macrame lessons on. As always, thank you guys for watching.